I love you. This song is for you.
There are performances that entertain, and then there are performances that rearrange the conversation. Justin Bieber's Coachella 2026 set did the second one fast. Within hours, headlines, fan edits, and full-on think pieces were everywhere. Some people called it a risky mess. Others framed it as a masterclass in showmanship that only looks messy if you don't understand the bigger strategy. But here's the real question nobody could agree on. Was the unpredictability intentional, or did it just expose chaos in real time? Because whatever you think about Bieber's choices that weekend, one thing became undeniable. The show didn't just happen. It sparked a debate. Welcome to the Coachella 2026 Justin Bieber era. A night that made people argue about everything from pacing and stagecraft to vocals, crowd energy, and what reinvention is supposed to look like when the artist is no longer trying to prove anything, only trying to command attention. It's easy to dismiss live shows as entertainment until you see one that feels like an event happening inside the event. At Coachella, every act is fighting for dominance in a crowded visual landscape, giant screens, relentless lighting cues, and a festival audience that's half there for the music and half there to capture the proof that they were present. Justin Bieber didn't just fit into that ecosystem. He disrupted it. Instead of giving people a straightforward greatest hits victory lap, the structure of the set, the transitions, the momentum shifts, the emotional swing, felt like it was built around something less predictable than a typical stadium-style run-through. The sequencing didn't read like a playlist. It read like a narrative. Even if some fans didn't like the direction in the moment, many had to admit they were watching something more deliberate than expected. That's where the chaos/genuine split began. Because when something is polished, people call it professional. When something is unpredictable, people call it risky. But not every risk is accidental. Not every mess is a mistake. So what exactly did Bieber do at Coachella 2026 that made the internet divide so quickly? Let's start with the skeptics, because their argument wasn't built on nothing, it was built on a handful of visible moments where the set felt, at least superficially, out of rhythm. In many top-tier pop performances, the pacing follows a pattern. Heat early, peak in the middle, then land the big emotional songs before closing with a maximal banger. Bieber's Coachella 2026 set, by contrast, felt like it climbed and dipped rather than steadily increasing. Some fans described it as unsteady, pointing to transitions that felt abrupt or songs that began before the crowd fully settled into a groove. In festival terms, that can be interpreted as a flaw. If the audience isn't synced, you risk losing momentum. But a different camp saw it differently. They thought Bieber was forcing the crowd to stay alert rather than drifting into autopilot. No matter how strong a performer is, live singing at festivals invites comparison, especially for an artist with Bieber's legacy. People expect precision. When a performance includes any rough edges, strained high notes, uneven delivery, moments that sound less studio-perfect, comment sections light up. And with Bieber, that's especially true because he isn't just a festival pop artist. He's a pop history artifact. People don't only judge the song, they judge the myth. So when skeptics saw vocal moments they didn't find perfectly controlled, they framed it as chaotic execution rather than honest live performance. Coachella stages are visual essays. Every cue, lighting design, screen content, wardrobe energy, choreography choices becomes a clue about how the artist wants to be perceived. Some viewers interpreted Bieber's 2026 choices as overcomplicated or inconsistent. If a performance leans into abstraction or shifts aesthetic mood mid-set, some people experience it as confusing. They don't always give credit to the possibility that the inconsistency is intentional, a technique to create contrast. For chaos watchers, contrast equals disorder. For genius watchers, contrast equals impact. This is the modern reality. If anything goes wrong even slightly, the clip that surfaces isn't necessarily the context. It's a moment, a snippet, a screenshot-ready reaction. So the internet didn't debate the whole performance, first it debated its most viral fragments. That naturally creates bias. When you only see the parts that look questionable, you end up judging a full cinematic sequence like it's a broken scene. And the algorithm loves controversy because controversy keeps people watching. Now let's flip the lens. If you were a believer watching closely, or a skeptic who later reconsidered Bieber's Coachella 2026 set might have looked less like chaos, and more like something carefully engineered to feel alive. One reason chaos performances often get called genius is because they refuse to behave like a rehearsed product. Coachella doesn't want robotic perfection. It wants spectacle, tension, and the sense that something is happening right now. Bieber's set, at least to fans defending it, had the texture of a live moment that wasn't trying too hard to erase imperfection. They read the rawness as emotional authenticity, not technical failure. In other words, the performance didn't just sound like music, it sounded like a person making decisions under pressure. A genius show doesn't always look smooth. It can look daring. If Bieber's sequencing was unconventional, defenders argued it was meant to keep the crowd in active listening mode, not passive consumption. Instead of delivering the same kind of festival arc everyone expects, the set created surprise. Surprise is a tool. In pop performance, surprise can feel like disrespect until it lands. When it lands, the surprise becomes memorable. And Coachella is where people go to remember. Even if some transitions felt abrupt, the overall crowd energy reportedly stayed high. Bieber has always had a unique relationship with the audience. Part idol, part storyteller, part hype driver. Genius fans pointed to the way he seemed to direct energy rather than simply receive it. He didn't just sing at the crowd. He guided it sometimes through momentum, sometimes through sudden shifts that forced the crowd to react again and again. If you think about it like choreography, a break in rhythm can be a planned technique to reset collective attention. Bieber's career has included enormous reinvention phases. Each time, fans and critics questioned whether the next version of him still counted. Coachella 2026 might have been another round of that evolution, but this time the performance wasn't just about the music. It was about identity. A genius artist isn't obligated to deliver the exact brand of nostalgia the crowd wants. Sometimes the point is to say, I'm not stuck in the past, and I'm not trying to recreate my old self like a museum exhibit. So for those defending the set, Bieber wasn't performing songs so much as performing growth. Here's the part that makes the debate interesting. You can reasonably argue chaos and genius refer to different things. If chaos means execution timing, vocals, smoothness, then skeptics have a case. If genius means strategy, energy management, crowd psychology, emotional sequencing, then believers have a case too. A performance can be technically imperfect but still artistically effective. Or it can be technically competent but emotionally confusing. The same moment can be read as a mistake or as an intentional disruption, depending on what you believe the performer is trying to accomplish. Coachella 2026 didn't just test Bieber's skills. It tested the audience's expectations. And that's why the conversation lasted. What Coachella 2026 Bieber says about the future of pop festival performances. One reason Bieber's set became such a cultural flashpoint is that it reflects a broader shift in how pop stars are expected to perform. People watch like critics. They analyze. They compare. They clip. They debate. In the old era, fans might have only judged a show on whether they danced and cried. Now fans also judge it on whether it felt crafted versus accidental. That creates pressure. But it also creates opportunities for artists to experiment. If a show can be interpreted two ways, the internet will fracture it into two teams. That's not inherently good or bad, it's just how attention works now. Bieber's Coachella 2026 set gave both sides enough to argue with, which means both sides stayed engaged. That drives longevity. There's a kind of renaissance happening. Pop performances are starting to feel like live events again, rather than simply scheduled entertainment. Bieber's set, whether you call it messy or masterful, felt like a live event. Because it didn't feel like it was happening to the crowd. It felt like it was happening with the crowd through reactions, energy shifts, and the tension of uncertainty. If you want a clean answer, you won't get one, because the whole point is that Coachella 2026 Bieber was built to be argued about. That doesn't mean the performance was flawless. It means it was effective in the only way that matters in 2026. It made people feel like something was happening. So is it chaos? If chaos means things didn't always go perfectly, then yes, some moments likely didn't land the way every viewer expected. Was it genius? If genius means the performance design created energy, suspense, and conversation, then also yes, because Bieber didn't just perform. He engineered the kind of night that turns into a story you retell. And in the end, that may be the most Bieber thing possible. Taking risk, absorbing critique, and transforming uncertainty into momentum. Because whether you call it chaos or genius, one truth remains the same. Justin Bieber's Coachella 2026 set didn't just entertain the crowd, he trapped the internet inside the aftertaste of a question. And the fact that people are still answering it is proof the show did what great performances always do. It stays with you.